Isn't there something you can do about this barely edible food? Enough already. Can't you make something better? A housewife should be able to cook food as good as a restaurant, right? No, this is normal. Your taste is too refined. You're always eating at expensive restaurants, and that's why. I'm the one who wants you to stop. Since marrying my husband 3 months ago, I've been listening to such complaints every day. His expectations are too high, and he keeps criticizing my household chores, which should be average. Make the bed sheets tighter, like they do in hotels. You really are bad at housework. My husband's ideal is a rich restaurant or a clean, glamorous space like a hotel. He's expecting too much from me. Unless we have a maid, someone busy with work like me can't do all that. If you want it so much, why don't you do it yourself? When I say that, my husband always goes silent. Because he knows he can't do it himself. Yet he always imposes his ideals on me. Just when I was starting to get fed up with such a husband. I've messed up. I forgot my wallet when I went shopping. Am I too stressed? While out shopping, I realized I had forgotten my wallet and went back home. From the living room, I heard strange noises. Tom's voice, and who else? As I was about to take off my shoes, I noticed an unfamiliar pair of shoes at the entrance. Pumps? Women's shoes? A woman's voice was mixed with my husband's voice from the living room, making embarrassing noises that echoed to the entrance. I quietly headed to the living room without making any noise. And there I found my husband in the act with what seemed to be his mistress. What the hell are you doing, you idiot husband? Enraged by my husband's actions, I slightly opened the living room door and recorded a video on my smartphone, which I sent to our relatives. Then, I got a message from my father-in-law, signaling me to confront them right away. Taking his advice, I jumped out in front of my husband with my smartphone. Hey, what are you doing? Live streaming to all our relatives. What are you doing? Stop it. A few minutes later, my father-in-law and my father showed up at the scene, turning it into the worst possible showdown. My name is Emily, and I am 39 years old. My entire family are civil servants, and since I was young, I was told to become one too. I studied hard and passed the civil service exam. My father is an executive director at the city hall, and under his direction, I joined the city hall and was told to secure a proper position. I worked hard and now serve as a section chief. Despite this, until recently, I was always single, focusing on studies and work, without much experience in romance. My younger sister, who is 3 years younger, got married and moved into our family home. So I rented an apartment near my parents' house. One day, "Excuse me, you dropped your wallet." "Oh, thank you." On my way home from work, I stopped by a convenience store and accidentally dropped my wallet. A nearby man in work clothes picked it up for me. At that time, I thought it would end there. But when I got home and checked the contents of my wallet, I found a note. It read, "Please call me," along with a phone number and a name. I had never experienced anything like this before in my life. I had never been approached by a man this way, so without any suspicion, I contacted him. "Excuse me, are you the one who picked up my wallet? Thank you for calling. I never expected you to actually call. Thank you for that time. Why did you do such a thing? When your wallet fell, I looked at your face and found you very beautiful. I fell in love at first sight. I couldn't say that at our first meeting, so I did it impulsively. I'm sorry, thank you very much." The man was so surprised by my sudden call that he tried to end the conversation. He probably never thought I would actually call. He didn't know what to do. Wait a minute. Since we connected like this, may I thank you for picking up my wallet? When I said that impulsively, the man, though a bit scared, agreed. And we decided to have lunch the next Saturday. Thank you so much for that time. If no one had returned it to me, I don't know what would have happened. No, I'm just glad you said that. Are you nervous? Yes. The man's name was Tom, and he was older than me. He was 42 years old, had never been in a relationship, and was single. He worked as a plumber, lived alone, ate out every day, didn't worry about money, and lived a day-to-day life. He told me all of this honestly. I was his first love at first sight, and he didn't know what to do. But he was glad he impulsively left his phone number and message. I see. But talking with you, Tom, is interesting. At that time, I found Tom's stories interesting. Because his lifestyle was completely different from mine. I never got bored listening to him. Rather, I enjoyed being with him. From then on, we contacted each other whenever something came up. Before I knew it, Tom started staying at my apartment. A few months later, we decided to get married. I never thought Tom would find such a beautiful wife. I'm really happy. Emily, please take care of my foolish son. When we were making our marriage announcement, Tom's father said. I had assumed that Tom's family wasn't very wealthy because of his appearance and demeanor. I felt sorry for that assumption. Tom's family home was quite large and impressive. Hey, what did your father do? This is a pretty grand house. My old man? He was a police officer. He was really strict. I hated him and rebelled against him all my life. A police officer. That's amazing. It's not amazing. Try living with him, it's infuriating. I couldn't understand my husband's feelings at that moment. Having a father who was a police officer seemed strong and reliable to me. I see. That was all I could say at that moment. Then, our married life began. But that life turned out to be a nightmare. Because of my husband's excessive expectations of women. Hey, what's with this food? Can't you make something tastier? What? Tastier? Is this food that bad? It's not bad, but the taste is too common. Can't you make it taste like high-class restaurant food? I'm not a professional chef. I can't do that. Besides, you've been eating my food all this time while living together and now you say this? Living together and being married are different. I thought the food would get better after marriage. I'm disappointed. This is the best I can do. Don't expect too much from my cooking. Isn't it normal for food to get better after marriage? No way. There's no magic like that. His expectations for me after marriage were quite unreasonable. He demanded the quality of high-end restaurant food and the cleanliness of luxury hotels. I thought he understood my lifestyle standards after living together for about 3 months. But he seemed to think things would change and the quality would improve after marriage. Seriously? Is this what happens when someone is single until 42? Does he have such unrealistic fantasies about women? Anyway, remember what our life was like before. It's impossible for me to meet such high standards. What's wrong with you? You're useless. Try harder to improve the quality. Before marriage, he never behaved like this. He was humble and kind to me, likely because he was older and had never been in a relationship, which made him insecure. But after marriage, he changed completely, criticizing me harshly and looking down on me for not meeting his unrealistic expectations. I never imagined he could be like this. Despite everything, I remembered how kind Tom was when we were dating, and believed he would eventually return to that. But I was too naive. Can't you do something about this barely edible food? Enough already. Make something better. Shouldn't a housewife be able to cook food as good as a restaurant? That became his constant refrain. When he was single, he couldn't cook, so he frequented various restaurants to eat good food. As a result, his taste became refined, and he started criticizing my cooking as bland and tasteless. When we were living together, you said my cooking was delicious. Who do you think you are? His complaints had been ongoing for about 3 months. At first, he didn't say my cooking was bad, but recently he started saying it outright. His words irritated me even more. If you complain so much, why don't you cook for yourself? You've eaten at so many good restaurants, you should be able to cook something delicious. I can't cook. I'm not a housewife. Think about our roles. Whatever I said, he always had an excuse. He would scrutinize any spot I missed while cleaning, like an annoying mother-in-law, and criticize me. Clean properly, it's filthy. I never thought you were so bad at housework. He constantly insulted me, and on top of that, he started to stress himself out over the situation he had created by doing nothing. I'm getting stressed out by how bad you are at housework. Can't you do something about it? Get it together. I am doing my best with housework. I've told you before, this is my limit. Do you have any idea how hard it is to work and manage housework at the same time? Oh, come on. Just because you work at the city hall doesn't mean anything. If you're doing overtime, it's because you're incompetent. If you did your job properly, you'd finish on time. Stop making excuses for your lack of ability and try to improve. That's why I keep telling you this every day. He didn't understand anything. I had told him I worked at the city hall, but I hadn't mentioned my position. Maybe I should have told him from the start. But now his attitude made me not want to share that with him. But I had reached my limit. I decided to tell him what needed to be said and make him understand. Then, he crossed a line he shouldn't have, and it touched my last nerve. On a Sunday afternoon, I was about to go to the supermarket to buy groceries for the week, as usual. When I arrived at the store, I realized I had forgotten my wallet. When I hit the brake, my bag fell open and rolled off the passenger seat. So I thought the wallet had fallen under the seat and spent a few minutes looking for it. But it wasn't in the car. I messed up. I forgot my wallet when going shopping. Maybe I'm just tired lately. I always shop at a discount grocery store about an hour away from my apartment. If I went back to the apartment to get my wallet and then came back to shop, it would be evening by the time I finished. Still, it was part of my routine, so I reluctantly decided to return to the apartment. When I got back and opened the front door, I heard strange noises coming from the living room. Huh? Tom's voice and, who else? As I was about to take off my shoes, I noticed a pair of women's shoes. Smaller than mine, placed there. Women's shoes? At that moment, I was certain. Women's shoes at the entrance, embarrassing noises coming from the living room. It was clear that my husband and someone else were doing something inappropriate. An affair? That man, who had never been with a woman until he met me. The idea of an affair seemed unlikely considering Tom's past. But given his recent attitude towards me, it wouldn't be surprising if he was indeed cheating. I quietly headed towards the living room, trying not to make a sound. The embarrassing noises that reached the entrance grew louder as I approached. This woman is too loud. Enjoying herself in my house, huh? To confirm my suspicion, I slightly opened the living room door to peek inside. There they were, my husband and his mistress, caught in the act. What the hell are you doing, you idiot husband? My anger reached its peak. After all his complaints about my housework, he had the nerve to get stressed and then cheat on me. I was so shocked by his actions that I started recording a video through the crack in the door. And live-streamed it to all our relatives. My father-in-law sent me a message. I'll come and deal with this idiot. Keep the stream going and burst into the living room at the right moment. I'm on my way. My own father also messaged, expressing his anger, I'm coming too. Tom needs a good talking to. Our counterattack began. At my own timing, I barged into the living room. The two of them jumped off the sofa, trying to cover themselves with their hands while yelling at me. Hey, what are you doing? Live streaming, to all our relatives. Upon hearing this, both of them looked at me in shock and rushed towards me. Stop it, what the hell are you thinking? Turn it off.
Yeah.
Filming someone naked is the worst. Stop it right now. What are you talking about? You have the nerve to say that while cheating? As the argument continued, I heard the front door open forcefully and the sound of several people entering the house. Wait, isn't it just my father-in-law and father? It sounds like more people. Just as I thought that, my father-in-law and father burst into the living room. What? Dad. But then, two uniformed police officers entered behind my father-in-law. And seeing them, my husband jumped in fright, clinging to his mistress. Why? Why are the police here? Stop. Don't come near me. He freaked out and clung to his mistress, trembling. What are you doing? Clinging to me in this situation, this is the worst. What? Huh? Seeing the police, my husband instinctively clung to his mistress. I was completely disgusted. And both my father and father-in-law had indescribable expressions on their faces. What are you doing, Tom? Stop it. I have a trauma with police officers. Don't come near me. Stop it. He said that and retreated to a corner of the room, cowering. Not understanding what was happening, I asked my father-in-law. And he explained why Tom was afraid of the police. Back in high school, he was quite the troublemaker. Known as a delinquent in the neighborhood. He got noticed by a very scary police officer near his school. When the officer found out he was my son, he gave him a severe scolding. Since then, he's been terrified of police officers. So, you brought them here because of that?
Yeah.
I asked some off-duty friends to come over in uniform today. But why? No matter what I say, he always rebels. I needed to have leverage to make him confess and behave. After saying that, my father-in-law dragged my husband from the corner and forced him to kneel in the middle of the living room. What are you thinking? You've been a troublemaker since you were young. And you haven't changed as an adult? Huh? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'll apologize for cheating. Please, just get the police officers out of here. No way. They're staying until you confess everything. My husband's eyes were filled with fear. He kept glancing at the police officers, seemingly looking for an escape route. Don't run away. You're going to tell them everything you did to me and how long you've been seeing that mistress. Why? Why are you blaming me so much? You didn't need to bring the whole family into this. You're being blamed because you did something wrong. Get a grip. Do you even realize what you're doing? With every harsh word, the police officers took a step closer. My husband flinched and cowered with each movement. Watching their movements, I found it ridiculous. I kicked their clothes towards them. Put your clothes on. It sickens me to see you both naked. There's no tension like this. I said coldly, urging them to dress. Once they quickly dressed, they were forced to kneel between my father-in-law and father, unable to move. So, what was that thing you did to me that Emily mentioned? Tom, explain it properly. My husband was too intimidated by my father's presence to speak. He knew my father held a high position at the city hall and was overwhelmed by his authority. Can't speak? Then I'll say it all. My husband nodded, leaving everything to me. Okay, I'll tell them. Tom has always had unrealistic expectations for a wife. He constantly complained about my housework, saying it wasn't good enough. As days went by, his complaints got worse. He even said he was stressed because I couldn't meet his standards. I couldn't take it anymore. Is that so? And did you know that Emily is a section chief at the city hall when you said those things? What? A section chief. My husband looked at me in shock at my father's unexpected revelation. You never told me. You said you worked at the city hall. But you never mentioned you had a position. Sorry, I should have told you from the start. But you assumed I was just a regular employee, and it was hard to correct you. So all the overtime was because I have a position, I'm busy. And remember, even though you moved into my house while we were dating, I've been paying for the rent and utilities by myself. You never contributed to the living expenses. Do you know what that means? Wait a minute. He told me this was his house. He even said he was divorced. He brought me here under false pretenses and embarrassed me. I want compensation. The mistress was shocked by his words and cried as she grabbed him by the collar, shaking him. You were deceived by my husband, how unfortunate. I didn't deceive anyone. I care about her too. The mistress slapped him again. Don't mock me. Who do you care about more, me or her? My husband couldn't respond to her words. He just stayed silent, letting the mistress shake him. I never thought it would come to this. I just wanted a little fun. I thought I was lucky to marry Emily and that things were finally going my way. That's why I spent all my salary on her. Living with Emily was stressful. So it felt new and enjoyable. Stop making a fool out of everyone. This woman is also a victim, deceived by you and made into a criminal. Your actions are too selfish. Released from the mistress's grasp, my husband knelt again and apologized to us. I understand. I don't expect forgiveness. Let me at least apologize. It's all my fault, I'll take the blame. Just let her go. I'll leave the house after the divorce, okay? Do you think that will make it right? You insulted my daughter. I can't forgive that. You'll pay the alimony. Please, I don't have a job now. Can't you spare me the alimony? No. You need to take responsibility for what you've done. My husband cried and begged in front of my father. Please, I really don't know what to do without a job. Tom, how did it come to this? I always thought you were lazy. But even society has given up on you? I couldn't do my job well and was bullied. They said, you're stupid. Why can't you learn anything, and you've been here 2 years? Why can't you do better? They kept saying awful things. But I thought about it. No one taught me anything. Whenever I asked, they just said to watch and learn. It didn't make sense. I was desperate, but I couldn't do anything. So a month ago, they laughed and said, you're fired, and kicked me out. I see. Maybe you chose the wrong company, or maybe you couldn't adapt. I don't know. But maybe I also share some responsibility for how I raised you. John, it's not your fault. Tom is 42 years old. He's an adult. You shouldn't feel responsible for his actions. The person who should feel responsible is Tom himself. Are you trying to get sympathy by acting like a tragic hero? You need to face what you've done more seriously. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do except apologize. I can't sympathize with you. You insulted my daughter and had an affair. Getting fired is your own fault. A 42-year-old man saying he was bullied at work because he couldn't do his job. You need to grow up and become more independent. You said you didn't want to be abandoned by Emily. This is a chance for you to learn and mature. That's right. You bragged about living day to day when we were dating. You didn't plan anything. Didn't you get kicked out of your apartment and then move in with me? My husband flinched at my accurate guess and looked at me. Yes, you're right. I spent all my money on food without thinking. You're so foolish. Having confessed everything, including his failures and infidelity, my husband couldn't say anything more. He collapsed in tears. My father, the mistress, and I looked at him with cold eyes. My father-in-law, however, showed some sympathy and approached him. Why not take this chance to reform yourself? I'll help you. But my husband pushed him away. I've lived carelessly. I thought I was lucky to get married. I won't ask for help. I'll take responsibility. I'll pay the alimony. I'm an adult, I'll handle this on my own. My husband looked at my father-in-law with determined eyes. It seemed he was serious. Could he truly change? I didn't know. But I felt his resolve. So I didn't press him further. I told him to leave the house and come back later to sign the divorce papers. Then, my father and I left with my father-in-law. Do you think Tom can change? I don't know. But his eyes reminded me of when we first met. If he can keep that determination, maybe he can. Will you support him? No. I still dislike him. The mistress, left behind, listened to our conversation. What about me? What should I do? I don't know. You may think of yourself as a victim, but you still committed adultery. You need to face your actions. I'm sorry. I was fooled by that idiot. I'll pay the alimony. The mistress gave me her contact information and quickly left. Unable to stand the awkward situation. Everyone around me feels like a storm and I am the eye of a hurricane. I'm exhausted. I said this as I finally let my tears flow, leaning against my father's chest. Later, my husband came to the house with my father-in-law. His head was shaved, making it seem like he was repenting in an outdated way. Did you shave your head as a sign of repentance? No, I did it to get serious. I decided to stop living a lazy life. I see. His eyes were different from before. They had a determined look. I'm really sorry for what happened. I offered to pay the alimony, but Tom insisted, I'll pay it myself, don't interfere. He's stubborn once he decides on something. I want to believe in Tom, but after what happened, if anything goes wrong, call me, Emily. I heard this from my father-in-law. I wanted to believe in Tom too, but considering he had betrayed me once, I couldn't fully trust him. However, I decided to give him this one chance because of his sincere eyes. And my father-in-law's offer of support. After that, the mistress paid the alimony as well, and Tom, though in small amounts, steadily paid me alimony. Occasionally, my father-in-law contacted me. Tom has always been clumsy with people and with his hands. He still seems to be struggling at work and gets teased, but he's doing his best. He's living alone again and insists on doing his best alone. Though clumsy, Tom worked hard to earn money and somehow managed to live. So far, he has been able to pay the alimony, but I feel it might not last forever. I wonder how long his mental strength will last. I want to believe in him, but I can't fully trust him because he betrayed me. I realized anew how important trust is in relationships. Once lost, it takes a long time to regain. This is exactly what it means. As for me, I continued living in my apartment, still single. I wondered if I'd ever find love again, but honestly, I didn't feel like pursuing a relationship for a while. That incident made me wary of love. Do you want me to introduce you to someone nice, sis? Sometimes, when I visited home, my sister would say this. It made sense that she worried since I was already 40 and in my early 40s. Not now. I'm sure I'll find someone good eventually. I said this to brush off my sister's words. But actually, I was a bit interested in someone. Occasionally, an older man came to the city hall for paperwork. When he saw me, he smiled and waved. Because of my past, I was cautious. Though we weren't dating yet. I thought about getting to know him better before considering a relationship.